Welcome to the Feast Life, where we empower you, the modern homeschool mom, to create a life and homeschool you love. One founded on faith, family, freedom, and fun. I'm your host, Julie Ross, creator of the award-winning homeschool curriculum, A Gentle Feast, and a certified Christian life coach. For more information on today's episode and to access my free gift for you, check out thefeastlife.me. Charlotte Mason once said, "Life should be all living, not a mere tedious passing of time." So on this show, we seek to savor the feast of life. Girl, grab your favorite beverage and pull up a chair. You are welcome at this table. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Julie Ross, the creator of A Gentle Feast, and I am here with my partner in crime, Shay, in the house.
Hello, everybody.
We haven't done one together in a while, have we?
It has been a while. Yes, we get to chat, but not always on podcasts.
That's true. So, yes. So, if you haven't listened to an episode with me and Shay yet, or Shay and I can talk grammar. I know my grammar. We're going to be talking about grammar today, and I can't even put a sentence together. That's because it's too early in the morning and I need more coffee, and then I can use proper grammar. Anyway, Shay and I just like to chat, and we just want y'all to listen in while we chat to each other. So
we love to talk about Charlotte Mason, and we love to talk about language arts.
So this is just us having a little conversation here. So welcome to our little conversation. Today we're going to be talking about language arts in a Charlotte Mason education, which is significantly different than how it's approached in a lot of other traditional education settings. So I think it's important to go through the components that Charlotte Mason's includes and some of the ones that surprisingly she doesn't include or includes in a slightly different way than what we're used to. If you would like more information on the different components of language arts and how Charlotte Mason addresses them, we will link to that in the show notes at homeschooling.mom for this episode. But it starts in home education, which was her first volume. And it starts on page 199. And she starts off teaching about how to teach reading to young children. And we have a whole nother episode. Don't ask me what number it is, Shay, because I haven't had enough coffee, but we will link to that episode as well. If you have young children and you're wondering how to teach them how to read, that is the first component of language arts, was reading. So she has a whole section on teaching reading. And then on page 226, she starts in with teaching reading to older children, or how that's approached. And really, she's pointing out that she has some really strong words here on page 227 about the habit of reading. She says, the most common and monstrous defect in the education of the day is that children fail to acquire the habit of reading. Knowledge is conveyed to them by lessons and talk, but the studious habit of using books as a means of interest and delight is not acquired. This habit should be begun early, so as soon as the child can read at all, he should read for himself, to himself, history, legends, fairy tales, and other suitable matter. So, Shay, do you have any thoughts on what you said there?
I think that's just one of the foundational things of the philosophy and her methods that sometimes scares people, because they think, what do you mean that it's just reading?
Yeah.
But then when we say just reading, it's not just reading. The whole concept of reading itself is so full of all these other types of skills underneath that one heading. And when we consider it to be not just reading, but the habit of reading and the knowledge that comes from that and the comprehension that comes from that, and them doing it on their own, which of course goes back to that self-education. Because I do have a lot of people say, so your language arts is basically, they're going to read books all day. That's all you're doing. Mm-hmm. But just even that question shows that you don't understand what is. Dig a little bit deeper and find out what that actually means, because it's the studious habit of using those books as a means of interest and delight. Mm-hmm. So when we start providing them, we're not just giving them Diary of a Wimpy Kid and saying, okay, this is your literature today. We're giving them books that are of interest and delight. That habit starts coming out.
I think even worse than Diary of a Wimpy Kid is diluted excerpts of a really good book.
Oh, yes, that's a great point. Yes.
That's like giving your kid a carrot once a week and being like, we have our vegetables. Like you're going to be very malnourished, and a mind will be very malnourished if they're not fed really strong living books and really deep things that they're going to acquire that interest and delight from. If they're diluted, you can't get those riches from, and you can't feed your mind from those. And she's saying it's a monstrous defect that they don't acquire the habit of reading. And I know we've talked to a lot of moms, and I've done 2 podcasts now on dyslexia. And so I think that's important to mention here, that even with children who struggle with reading, it is still possible to do a Charlotte Mason education that is based on books. And so if you're having a child who's struggling in that area, I highly recommend those 2 podcasts. We'll link to those too. But
you could read with your ears.
That in that episode, right?
You can read with your ears. And I think there's so many people who think I cannot follow this philosophy because I'm not like maybe the parent's not a strong reader. But if you just take a few minutes to a little time to understand what the options are there and what she's really saying. And one thing that breaks my heart is that when I taught school, our reading period every day was like, I think 20 minutes that they allowed us to actually put books in the hands of a child to read.
Yeah.
And it would really, yes, it would really break my heart. And that's not acquiring the habit of reading. Yeah, that's really powerful to understand when you start to look into the way that she considers language arts.
Yes. And I think this is a good point too, that when the child is able to, they should be able to start reading these things for themselves. And I think some parents can be reluctant to let that go, and they want to read everything to them, and they want to read everything together as a family. But your child is going to get to an age in Form 2 where they really need to start going off and reading these books on their own, and then coming back and narrating, but doing that hard work of that self-education, whether it's reading with their ears, reading with their eyes.
Right. We've gone through that this year. That's been something for us because my daughter's in the 4th grade. And so we've done that weaning off this year where I'm starting to hand over things to her, and she doesn't really love it. She's a fabulous reader. And I think because she's the youngest of 5, so she's been listening to books for all these years. So that's why, but she would rather me read everything to her. But her narrations are so much better when she reads it for herself.
That's a good point.
So I think that I really see a difference in the narrations when she's listening. And so we switch off, and it's been less and less as the year has gone on.
Right. Yeah. It's not like an abrupt shift. Oh, you can read now. Here's your pack of books. Good morning. Like you can
right.
family readings and things that you do together, but it can't be the bulk of their learning as they get older. And I've even seen people when their kids are in high school, they're reading everything with them and with the younger kids. And I'm like, no, they have to start doing this hard work of education, because, and she even addresses that in here a couple pages later. They get lazy, right? if they're not having to build
human nature.
Yeah, I mean, we're all like that, right? I like somebody just to read to me all day long. That sounds like a great plan.
Exactly. And the more you put the tools in their hands, I was trying to explain to my daughter at the beginning of the year when I was saying, okay, now you're gonna read this book by yourself, and I'm gonna read this. I'm like, okay, and then later on, you're gonna read more. I'm starting you out with a spade, and you're going to do the digging with the spade. And later on, I'm going to give you a bigger shovel. And then you're going to do a bigger and bigger shovel until you're digging these holes for yourself. You're digging this information out for yourself. But I'm not going to hand her one of these big, heavy shovels in the beginning of 4th grade. We're just going to do a little bit along. And she still doesn't love it. She does read the bulk of her books by herself, but she almost always says, don't you want to read this too? She would rather me read to her.
She also says in here that it's important for students to read aloud, which is interesting. And she's saying here that they should do that with a good deal of poetry. So I feel like that falls into the umbrella of recitation. So being able to read aloud, usually a poem or a Bible verse or something was what she would have them use to practice how to properly enunciate. She talks in here about proper breathing and all those things that nowadays we don't really pay attention to, but it is an amazingly important skill to be able to read something out loud clearly and effectively. And it also gives you a good indicator if how your child is progressing. And once they start reading on their own, having them read aloud to you every once in a while or do their recitations, you see how they're progressing in their reading as well if you aren't reading with them for everything.
I I think that's a modern skill too, because of so many things. And I also have one who's a senior in college, so I have a big spread, but he has so many video meetings and Zoom calls, and even for his job that he has now. It's important. I love this phrase. I've said this to my children so many times on page 227. It says, a beautiful word deserves to be beautifully said. And so I think it's important for them to have those skills. If I have something in front of me and I'm on a Zoom call with these clients or all these other people, we're trying to think down the road, preparing them, I'm able to read these in a proper way with correct elocution and the way that I project my tone of voice. So it is a skill that, even though she wrote this so long ago, it's a modern skill that kind of has fallen by the wayside. So I think it's important.
Yes, for sure. And she also, this was the quote I was talking about. That's on 228. She says, we must remember the natural inertness of a child's mind. Give him the habit of being read to, and he will steadily shirk the labor of reading for himself. Indeed, we all like to be spoon-fed with our intellectual meat, or we should read and think more for ourselves and be less eager to run after lectures, which I would say today is podcast, YouTube. Oh, wait, podcasts and YouTube videos. No,
Never mind. Never mind. You should always listen to our podcast and our YouTube videos.
Read for yourself. You should listen to what I say.
But you know what's funny is we do get a lot of questions from people who say, I don't have the inclination or the time to read the volumes for myself. So where can I find the most simplistic way to understand the philosophy and the methods? And I get that. Look, we are busy, but I also think it really sets the tone for your whole educational atmosphere in your home. When your child sees you picking up a volume of Charlotte Mason's and setting your timer for 5 minutes even, and saying, I'm not going to have this meat spoon fed to me. I am going to set my timer, read for 5 minutes. I read for something of hers every day for 10 minutes. I set my timer and I read something of hers every day for 10 minutes. And it's just 10 minutes. My kids know I'm going to read this for 10 minutes, something of hers every day. Every day. And I think that's important for us to show our children too.
They're very daunting, but it's just take a bite at a time, like you're saying. And that's the habit that we're teaching our kids too, is that slow way of reading. And I don't think that's in here, but she addresses that later, that children shouldn't be rushing through the reading, that you want that slow and steady pace of reading so that they're just reading a few pages even for their reading lesson when they're able to read by themselves. And then the narrating is part of that reading lesson time. Just taking those small, steady steps in that right direction, I think is huge. And then, modeling that for them. Except for our podcast is awesome. So you definitely listen to that. But
what you do is you read for 10 minutes and then you turn the podcast on for a little while.
Totally legit.
While you're washing dishes. That's when I listen to podcasts.
I mean, you can't read and wash dishes. Your book will get ruined.
That's what I'm saying. So we're solving so many problems for you here.
And then she also says, a child has not begun his education until he has acquired the habit of reading to himself with interest and pleasure, books fully on a level with his intelligence. I am speaking now of his lesson books, which are all too apt to be written in a style of insufferable twaddle, probably because they are written by persons who have never chanced to meet a child.
So true. So true. Oh, yes.
Yeah. Textbook writers. Yeah. They don't have a whole time of the child. And then she talks about the importance of letting them only have a single reading before they narrate. She also says that reading lessons need to be short. On page 230, she says, for this reading lessons must be short. 10 minutes or a quarter of an hour for fixed attention is enough for children of the ages we have in view. A lesson of this length will enable a child to cover 2 or 3 pages of a book. So that's not a ton of pages.
And it's amazing though, when this is part of a Charlotte Mason language arts, just education altogether, because it doesn't matter what sort of book, but this is one of the things that scared me in the beginning, because I remember reading this when I was really studying and thinking there's no way that they're going to get anything out of 2 or 3 pages of a book. But if you trust the process and the methods, it is amazing how much they will get and how much I remember years ago, I don't, you may know the book, it was some kind of book about memory, how to increase the way that you remember things. And
Mhm,
it would always say, break it down into chunks.
mhm,
And so instead of reading or trying to memorize a big chunk of something, you
mhm.
do a little bit. And she was so brilliant, Charlotte
Oh, yeah.
Mason. So long before that, this is what we're saying. We're not giving them a whole chapter even, but we're giving them a few pages. And then the next day, they're going to remember that because the beginning and the ending are closer together. We lose what's in the middle. It's the beginning and the endings we remember. And
Mhm.
so this has proven itself to be so true with my children.
Yeah.
And even stopping that lesson when they want to go on
Yes, right.
so that their appetite is whetted. I'm like, no, the timer's off. Not for fun reading. I'm talking about school reading, which is different. But the timer's off, and you're done. That's it. And they're, oh, I want to finish the chapter because I want to know what happens. No, you can finish that tomorrow. And so the next day there is an excitement about that. Oh yes, we got to get back to that because I want to know what happens next.
Whereas the reading lesson goes on and on and on. And you're going to have to stop some kids. Some kids will want to read an entire book in one sitting and they're going to get sick. Like eating
Right.
a whole pizza in one sitting is not good, right? And kind of, you can teach them that metaphor. You're going to get a lot more out of this book when you go in slow and steady, chew your food before you swallow it, kind of
Right.
metaphor there, and they'll enjoy it a lot more. And so I think there's some reading programs that take 45 minutes for a kid to go through all this stuff at a really young age, and you have to read this, and then you have to do this activity with it and cut these things out, and that's way too long. Short 10 minutes to 20 minutes here, but you're able to give a fixed attention to it. So we want their reading lessons to be short so that they can focus on them. All right, and then she goes on to narrating, which we're not going to delve into today either because we already have a whole podcast on that one, so we'll link to that one. Okay, and then she talks about handwriting. So we'll jump in there because we have not talked about that yet. So that's on page 233. And she says, first, let the child accomplish something perfectly in every lesson, a stroke, a pothuk, a letter. Let the lessons be short. It should last no more than 5 or 10 minutes.
Right.
Ease in writing comes by practice, but that must be secured later. In the meantime, and she's talking about avoiding the habit of careless work. So let's talk about handwriting here.
I think copy work and the way that if we're talking about children that are just learning to form letters, right,
Yeah,
right,
before
of
class.
course, then that's right. That's more like the here's the letter M. We need to do that. But I think that was really perfected when my form ones were in their copy work and they saw the reason that the letter M needs to look nice is because it's the beginning of the word more. It's
Right.
that in context. But those 5 or 10 minutes is the same thing. You don't think that there's going to be a lot accomplished there, but they are so proud if they do that's done correctly. And we do get a lot of questions about that, about what do I do if my child's copy work is or their handwriting is sloppy. And so I say, I'm not sure that's your best. So tomorrow we're going to do that again. We're going to do that again tomorrow because I don't think that was your best. And it doesn't take many times to say that to where they understand what you're expecting because you don't want to beat them down where they're dreading that 5 or 10 minutes.
Right.
They
And
do.
you're talking about once they actually know how to form their letters.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Like a child is
Right.
just starting out. Right.
Right.
At the beginning, she just started out with strokes and then letters and putting like letters together. I think that's really important to, and she talks in here about like a child-sized desk. And I know lots of us, myself included, like to do school around the dining room table or on a couch. But when they're learning to make their letters, their feet need to be flat on the floor. They need to be able to sit up straight and to able to have the book down under proper levels. And she mentions that in here. So I think that's really important. If you're able to get a little child table for a child who's just starting out forming their letters, I think that's a great way to go. I include this in my handwriting book, like some thoughts and ideas about that when they're just starting out. You don't want to start out with just pencil and paper.
Right.
They will hold their pencil wrong. Pencils are too big for little tiny hands and paper doesn't have enough friction. I say break a crayon in half and that makes them have the little pincer grip. So they'll hold the crayon, learn how to hold the crayon correctly. Put a piece of sandpaper underneath the paper. If you're going to start out with paper, at least do it with crayon and something under it. But I prefer to start off like in the air, making the letters really big in the air, making them on a chalkboard, preferably like a chalkboard on the wall. So not only are they getting the resistance of the chalkboard, but they're building that fine motor strength by having to hold their arm up. But if you can't do that, anything on the wall will be better than having them down at first.
I love all those fun things at that age when they're just learning the strokes and they're just learning all those fun things, write them in sand and all those. Oh, I love those
A piece of
things.
paper and a pencil in front of them. First, just starting out making those letters. Yeah. You're really doing them a disservice. So yeah, enjoy the fun. They're going to get there soon enough. Trust me.
Yes, that time period goes by so quickly. And I used to have a little tub that had all of our handwriting or letter formation stuff in it.
Yeah.
And oh, I used to love to pull that out. We had all kinds of stuff in there. And my kids just love to even using crayons on sandpaper. They used to love to do that, writing on the sandpaper and
Yeah.
oh, all those. I miss all that.
Yeah. All right. So once they're able to form their letters well, and she says they should be able to do 6 very good M's in a row.
Yes.
So once they're able to do that with their letters, then you can start copy work. And this is where they're copying words at a time. They should not be looking at Susie is smart. They shouldn't be copying S, U. They should be able to look at Susie.
Yes.
Now write the word Susie. So copy work is words, not just letters. So now once they're able to form their letters well, and there is no like, your child is 6, so they should be doing copy work fully.
Oh, that's tough.
They don't know their letters yet, and don't have good handwriting. Just go back, do the handwriting first, and then jump into the copy work.
That's hard for people because they're like, we're in the first grade. Aren't we supposed to be doing this and that? You can't answer that question because I don't sit down with your child and know exactly what they can do.
Right.
Just have the freedom and take a deep breath and trust yourself. You know your child and you know what they're capable of doing. Can they look at the word Susie and say, this says Susie? Okay, if they're not there yet, it's okay. It doesn't matter what their age is. It's okay. Just start back on practicing the S's. That's okay. Take your time and
Yeah. And they might not be able to read Susie yet, but can they read set? Can they read if they are beginning like consonant, vowel, consonant?
and seeing that set of words together as
letters together make words. If they don't,
yes.
that like copy work is going to be absolutely meaningless to them because the goal is to learn how to spell by seeing entire words at a time. Yeah, there's no hard or fast rule of when to start this. I tell people it really depends on their child's handwriting ability, but also where they are in reading as well. The variation there. Now, Charlotte Mason talks about that children should pick, and in here too, just so if you go back and read it, you might be wondering, she calls it transcription in here. What we refer to as copy work. She uses both terms, but it's basically looking at a passage and transcribing it or copying it down. She had the children pick their favorite passages, which I think is a very delightful way to do it. It gets them interested. The whole goal is it's not this arbitrary passage out of air. Like it's something that's interesting to them or it's something that's related to something that they've been reading or something that they've been studying. So it actually has meaning and context to their lives. And I'm not just copying aimless stuff. But I found in my own homeschooling journey that it took too long for them to figure out what they wanted to actually copy or they wanted to copy sentences that were super short just to make it easy.
That's what mine, yes, that is exactly what we do. Can I do this sentence? The mole ran across the field. No, you cannot copy that sentence if you're in the 5th grade. You cannot. I'm sorry. It's mine take a little encouragement. And I think modeling is super important for that. As they say, like instead of me, when I would just choose copy work for them, I would say, I'm choosing this sentence out of your passage here, or here's a paragraph. Which of these 3 sentences do you like? And then talk about why I was choosing that, because this has some punctuation in it. Or why did you choose that sentence? If they chose the mole ran across the field because it's the shortest one, that's really not our indication. So is there a word in this sentence that you think challenges you, or are you interested in it? Or
yeah, for sure. So yeah, just you might want to pick a few beforehand. History books, literature books, poetry, hymns, Bible verses always make really good copywork passages. If you have a way to stand a book up so they can see it upright and copy from that. For the language arts packets for A Gentle Feast, I picked the passages and that was a huge help. Once I started picking them for them, just eliminated a lot more time. And I think the key with copywork and with all these language arts components is you have to be consistent. Yes. And when I was letting my kids choose them, and we were doing copy work sporadically and they weren't getting the benefits. When we
Right.
started doing it every day, we did these language arts components every week, then I started seeing the benefits that she talks about here and the purposes of them.
That is such an important key is the consistency on, like you said, all of these things. It's that if you're doing the handwriting and they're still forming the letters,
Mhm,
that they're doing that every day so they can see progression.
mhm, mhm.
And if you're doing copy work, doing it consistently so they can see progression. Because if they're only doing it once a week, it's not, you're just not going to see that. But when I love, my kids love to go back and look at even my ninth grader, she will go back and look at her cursive from the beginning of this year and
Mm.
see how much. I don't know if you were like me in high school. Did you love to toy with your handwriting? Oh, my.
I was writing my name with some boy's last name. That was in elementary school. That was in high school, but yeah, I was making the pretty letters.
She's like, oh, so now we've got a slant to it this week, a beautiful slant. And so I think it's consistency. If you don't do that every day, then they're not going to be able to see how far they have come. And that's super important,
So copy work is every day. It's only 5 or 10 minutes. So this is really
right?
not a whole big chunk of your day
No,
that you can do just a little bit, add on a little bit to the passage or the poem or whatever it is that they're copying every day. Okay. And then she talks about spelling. So she says the way that she teaches spelling is through something called dictation. She says the fact is the gift of spelling depends on the power of the eye to possess, in a photographic sense, a detailed picture of the word. And this is a power and habit which must be cultivated in children from the first. When they read cat, they must be encouraged to see the word with their eyes shut, and the same habit will enable them to imagine Thermopylae. This picturing of words upon the retina appears to me to be the only royal road to spelling. An error once made and corrected leads to a fearful doubt for the rest of one's life as to which way is the wrong way and which is the right. She taught spelling through visual. So it's not memorizing a bunch of spelling rules and then you can learn how to spell. It's writing these words from this copywork, seeing them as a whole word. So, even when you're teaching reading, this is why everything has to flow together here. They are learning phonics, but they're looking at also the same time doing sight lessons and seeing a word as a whole. And yeah, because even now, sometimes I still second guess myself when I'm spelling a word and I'm trying to remember the rule
yes.
that doesn't actually apply half the time or is broken or
Because if you're comfortable with the word, then you see it in your mind and you just write it. If you're comfortable with the word, and that's the goal for them, is to be able to see it in their mind. This is another one. I remember the first time I read about spelling, I'm like, what, you mean to tell me we're not going to give a list? I'm coming from public school, right, where we got a list.
on every spelling test. I
Me too.
would spell it.
I
I
can't.
would-
And then
It would be out of my mind by Friday afternoon.
exactly. Same thing. And this is what I tell everybody that asks me about this, is that this is the only actual carryover from a spelling program I have ever had. So when my children were younger and before I would just really trusted this, and I was still pulling out, I know it's really terrible, but I was still pulling out, I have to give you 5 words to learn this week because that's my crutch. It makes me feel good. you know, nothing would carry over. They would then, because then they would write and they couldn't spell that word.
Mm.
So the only carryover that I've ever had is from teaching spelling this way. And
Mhm.
then in their writing, they actually remember how to spell it.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, for sure. They're looking at the words and then she has them doing something called dictation. So do you want to explain what that is for people who don't know what that is?
Yes. So whatever you have transcribed that week or used as copy work, your child is going to study. Now, I know I've read some things that say some of them did a different, sometimes they did a different copy work every day. But so we use the same copy work and then they study that copy work as they're going on. So they're looking at the spelling, which we just talked about. They're looking at the punctuation. And then on Fridays, I guess you don't have to do it Friday. This is how we do it. I speak that passage to them broken up into sentences or chunks, and they write it down from memory.
Mhm.
If we were doing this, I would read the first sentence and they would write the animal, whatever, ran across the field to the farm. And then I say that the animal ran across the field to the farm, and they copy that down with correct spelling and correct punctuation.
Mhm.
It seems so ridiculously simple, but it is incredibly powerful. It is incredibly powerful because they have to have the power of attention, the habit of attention. They're listening to
Listening,
you.
yeah, it's really hard. And with my daughter with lots of learning disabilities, the dictation, I have to break the chunks. I'll read the whole sentence like you did, but I have to say one word, and
Yes,
she's still at the point where she cannot remember. Whereas my older kids, I could just say the whole sentence.
yes.
Just copy the whole sentence. I don't think go word by word now. So yeah, it's knowing your kid too. Yeah.
And then for them to understand, they also are visually, because they've been looking at this copy work,
Yeah.
they're in their inner eye, in their mind, they are seeing there was a comma after the end of that phrase. Now, of course, we're not talking about second, third, fourth, fifth grade, even, but later on, especially like my ninth grader, I can see the look on her face. There's a comma there. I remember there's a comma in that place. So that way, the grammar of it in dictation is really embedding itself, because intrinsically, I've taught so many writing classes. And one year I taught nothing but seventh grade boys. And I used to say they would just throw commas out, just throw them out by the handfuls, you know?
About that, she says too much focus on grammar will lead to a misuse of commas.
Yes. And it was just like 12 commas and everything, just throwing out those commas. And so we would work on picture that sentence that you're writing. And that some of that's just intrinsic. It comes from looking at the books that we're reading. And this all so ties together. It's really hard to compartmentalize, but they've been looking at these books that are well written, and they've been seeing these commas where one is put. You get that feeling for it. Then they study their copy work as they go during the week. And then on Friday, or whatever day you choose to do your dictation, as you read these, I don't have to say this phrase and then comma, but they can hear it in the
Wouldn't
pause.
do that. She wouldn't say the
Right.
punctuation. She would pause. And sometimes I
Yes.
over pause.
Yes.
A slight pause is a comma, probably. And a
Yes.
pause
Right.
is an end punctuation. And you can explain that to them as they're reading the passage, as they're studying it throughout the week. Point out those things to them. Yes.
And that's why recitation's powerful too, because
Yes.
it goes back to that when they're reading these beautifully words that deserve to be beautifully said, they learn, how do I say this passage and include this comma?
Mhm.
What does that sound like in my own voice for me to read this? What does a comma sound like? What does a period sound like? What does a semicolon sound like? So
Mhm.
it ties together, and then they do that in dictation.
And Charlotte Mason had dictation starting in Form 2. So about fourth grade, they would have a passage that they were going to have to be able to spell from memory on a weekly basis. Like you were saying, they're not copying 3 pages.
This is just a
They start
short
small.
passage.
So even if your copywork passage was long or they've been copying a whole poem all week, don't expect them to do that from memory.
Yeah.
Start with one sentence
Mhm.
or a few words, even if your child struggles, and add on from there so that as they get older, they'll be able to do that. And at first I was like, oh, we're ever gonna get past just a few sentences every week.
Yeah.
But it's true. My daughter is in 7th grade now. She just did the whole introduction to the Declaration of Independence this week.
It's amazing
It blew my
how
mind.
yes, it's amazing how it builds on each other. But I also want to say it must be consistent. You can't do dictation. Okay, you did your copy, but we're
Hey,
not going to
well,
do
we haven't
dictation.
done dictation in a month. Let's pick a
Yeah,
passage. Yeah.
right. And you've got to do it every week.
Mhm.
And when you put too much pressure on yourself, I think is when you don't do it. But when you say, we're going to set this timer, and whatever you get in 5 minutes, that's it. It's okay. Whatever we get in 10 minutes, and you want it to be such a positive experience. And you say, look at that. Last week, maybe we only got 3 words in. Look at this week. You got that entire sentence in.
Mhm.
I really give out the stickers on dictation for young ones. I'm like, lots of stickers on that dictation work at the end of the week. That is such a great, and because it really does build faster than you think that it will build.
Mhm. And even though Charlotte Mason didn't include dictation to Form 2 in A Gentle Feast for Form 1, so grades 1 through 3, which really most kids, it'll be second or most kids 3rd grade, that I do have them do something, a kind of dictation
Similar.
called
Yes.
French style dictation, where they're just learning a few sight words. And instead of copying the whole passage, I give them the passage with the words that they've been studying all week to fill in the blanks. So like the, and, big, simple words, you can give them a sentence and then just leave blanks for those words, but then fill in like mouse and field, like in the sentence you were using for an example. They're not learning how to spell those, but some basic sight words they can, if their handwriting's well and they're reading well, they're ready, I think, for some simple words, and it gives them that habit.
Yes. And it being in context is so important for that.
Random word, yes.
Because I think that's why I loved that style of dictation for Form 1, because it's not just, okay, spell the THE, but they're seeing where it is in the sentence. How is that short word used in a sentence? And one thing that's really interesting is when my Form 2 got to the lesson on articles, the and she's like, I already know that because I know where to put them in dictation. And that's what she said. She said, I know what that is. Those are the words that we used to fill in dictation.
That's so
And
funny.
she's right, because yes, that's where you start.
Yep.
And so it was a lot of those articles. And so it's amazing how much they picked up that sort of skill in context.
Yeah, that's a good point. So here's how you give a dictation lesson. She says on page 242, the teacher asks if there's any words that he's not sure of. I have my kids looking at that passage all week as part of copy words. So it's not just a passage that they're just getting now for dictation, which I think is more what he was doing. But even though they've been studying that all week, I still ask them that. Are there still any words that you're unsure of? And we put them, it says, the teacher puts them on the board one by one, letting the child look till he has a picture, and then rubbing the word out. If anyone is still doubtful, he should be called to put the word he is not sure of on the board. The teacher watching to rub out the word when a wrong letter begins to appear, and again, helping the child to get a mental picture. Then the teacher gives out the dictation clause by clause, each clause repeated once, and that's the key.
Ooh.
So that's why you have to know your kid in order to break it down. Like I was saying, I can read read the whole sentence so they get the flow of the language. But then some kids, like your example, like the mouse ran to the field, you might be able just to say that to some kids and they can just write the mouse ran to the field. Whereas I'll say the mouse ran to the field. With my one child, I'll say the.
Yes.
Wait till she writes down the. And then I'll say mouse. Like I can't give her more than a couple words at a time. Her brain just can't hold all that information in at one time. And what she was having, and then she says, she dictates with a view to the pointing, which the children are expected to put in as they write, but they must not be told comma, semicolon. So here, the teacher can give these pointing things before they do the dictation. Oh, look, there's a comma there. Oh, yeah. And they can, like I was saying, I'm very dramatic with my pauses when I'm reading. So they know there's something was supposed to go there.
Right. Something goes there. This is where this is inserted. Yeah.
After the sort of preparation I've described, which takes 10 minutes or less, there's rarely an error in spelling. If there be, it is well worth the while for the teacher to be on the watch with slips of stamp paper to put over the wrong word. Then its image may be erased as far as possible. At the end of the lesson, the child should again study the wrong word in his book until he can be sure of it and write it over the stamp paper. I don't know what stamp paper is because I don't know. You can use a little bit Post-it notes. You can use whiteout. Mine, if I just am watching, and if my kids start, like she was saying, if they start writing it on the board and the first time one of the letters is off, I'll point out, okay, nope, picture it in your mind, try it again. How do you do that?
I do the same thing because I do copy work dictation individually with my children. So I think what she's talking about, since it's in a classroom setting, it would be hard. I think this is hard. That would be hard to keep up. But so I just watch them when they do dictation. And as soon as one of them starts with the wrong letter, like you're saying, I'm like, that's not it. Let's stop. And I want you to think about it. If they cannot get it, then I write it down on a sticky note for them so that they see the correct answer. And then I'll let them write it down. And then whenever we're done, so it's right there, it's on the paper. And so then when we're done, whatever words there are on those sticky notes, I want them to go over those words because I know that's not what they got. But I will say this, that is in Form 2, really, as they progress through Form 2, I have some of that. But rarely do I have that very much once they hit like Form 3. I think it's sometimes if there's one of those tricky names, like there's been some names that are like those Greek names and stuff like that. And I'm like,
don't get the child. They don't have,
you're not trying to trick them. I do want to encourage parents to understand that really rarely happens when you've been studying copy the passage, when you've really been looking at the passage. Most of the time, they're like, oh, maybe those tricky, sometimes weird spellings. Like we had a word the word the other day, peace or something, and she was not sure about the I and the E.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
So we have some of those things, but that just doesn't happen that often
Mhm.
as you progress. In the beginning, more,
Yes.
but as you progress, it really doesn't happen that often.
Yeah, no, yeah, I've been amazed for my child who could barely spell at all, who's now in 7th grade writing the whole Introduction Declaration of Independence with no errors and none of me pointing out how to spell any of the words. I was just like,
Right.
oh my goodness, this works.
It does. Why are we still so surprised
But
sometimes?
yeah, but at the beginning I wondered because it was
Yes.
several words in her dictation passage. Struggle with, or we'd sit through them. I'm gonna have to go. My alarm is going off for some reason. It's driving me bananas. So I'll be right back. Well, I this out. I don't know what happened. What is that noise? My alarm. Oh. Hey everyone, Julie Ross here. I just wanted to pop in and let you know about something special that I am doing. Starting May 7th, I will be doing a free 3-day workshop called The Gentle Art of Homeschooling. So you may have chosen to homeschool because you want to give your children the gift of an education that looks vastly different from our modern education system. You know, the one of checking off all the boxes, cramming in all the facts, and the one-size-fits-all mentality. You long for connections, deep discussions, and a slower pace of life. You want your children to develop good character, critical thinking, and a love for learning, but all the different curriculum options and educational philosophies and all those voices are making your head spin, and you wish you could just have someone take your hand and guide you through it all. Well, now you can. Join me for 3 days for this free workshop. I have helped thousands of families walk through the gentle art of homeschooling, and I would love to share what I have learned with you as well. So to sign up, go to thefeastlife.me/gentle to save your seat, and join me for 3 days where I will show you how to fill your homeschool with creativity, curiosity, and connection. Again, that's thefeastlife.me/gentle. Okay, sorry. The guy said he was going to fix it. He told me how to fix it, and it's still going off. And I'm like, okay, I can't deal with the beeping noise. All right, so we're going to start back here.
I couldn't hear it, so that's good.
Well, it was driving, like I couldn't concentrate.
Yeah.
So as they're going through, again, she says, illiterate spelling is usually a sign of sparse reading, but sometimes of hasty reading without the habit of seeing the words that are skimmed over. So I think this is really important when people are asking me, my child still really struggles with spelling, and I'm like, are they reading the book to themselves? No, I read it to them. Then they're not seeing these
They
words.
don't see it. Yeah,
Or even if a kid is listening to an audiobook, I always have them follow along
me
with
too.
the actual book. So they're seeing the words as they're hearing them, or reading with their ears, as we say. But then I also have kids who read too fast. And so I think the importance of slowing down when you read is you're not rushing through it, because they'll guess at the word based on the first couple letters or how it sounds like, and they're not taking the time to see the whole word. So you really want to encourage that, and it does all tie together, right? All right, and then she goes on to composition, which we're not going to spend a ton of time on either, because that really has to do with their oral narrations and transferring them to written narrations. But as a child, or the episode that I have on how to teach high school,
It's a great one.
they are learning how to write. It's just going to happen later than we might expect a child today's world. So I think it was like the national, I can't remember the name of the study, but it came out about 3 years ago, and it was 1% of all graduating seniors could write a well thoughtful and organized essay.
I remember hearing that.
And yeah, it's crazy. But we had this idea of, oh, our high school kids aren't writing very well, so we need to teach kindergartners now how to write paragraphs. It's like giving a 16-year-old keys, a 4-year-old some keys, and be like, someday you're going to be 16, you're going to need to learn how to drive. So we're going to start.
Hold it and sit behind it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, writing is a developmental skill. So the copy work, they're looking at great passages, right? They're having that example that they're writing from. They're reading and hearing these great books. So when they are able to write on their own, which is a process that happens through narration from talking and then to writing, they incorporate so much of this wonderful language in the styles of the authors that they've been reading. And that's how people learned for hundreds of years how to write, right? It's not like Charlotte Mason has some weird voodoo way of writing that like she just pulled out of thin air that we think of because it's so different. But no, people were doing this for way longer until we decided that we were going to make these factory models of education. If we just put these kids in these systems, they'll learn how to write well. They don't. It's forced. It has no style. It has no voice.
I think it's so hard sometimes for people to embrace the whole concept of this philosophy, this way of teaching language arts, when actually it's the most natural way to teach it. It's the least manufactured and the least forced, because you just immerse them in what you want their end product to look like. If you want a child to write like this particular book that's wonderful, or this wonderful essay, or this, if this is what you want your end product to be, we immerse our children into that as early as we can. And that's why we all sit around the table in the morning and listen to poetry that we may not really understand every single word, because this is what we want our end product to be. We may listen to books that we do not understand every single word in and get every single phrase or concept, because this is what we want your end product to be. So when we put them into that, it builds. And then when they get to like my ninth grader and some of the things that she writes, I'm amazed by, but it's because she's been hearing this since she was in Form 1.
Yes, they hear that style of language and writing, and that's how people taught. They looked at models of great writers and they would copy them. Just like you do for art, famous painter. You don't have to pull it out of thin air, and we're making kids do that, and they can't. They don't have the experiences to do that. I love how she says this. She says, composition comes by nature. In fact, lessons on composition should follow the model of that famous essay on snakes in Ireland. There are none. She's so funny. It just cracks me up. Like, I think her and I would just be like best friends.
I know. I hate we didn't get
her witty sense of like British humor just cracks me up. Anyway. For children under 9, the question of composition revolves itself into that of narration, varied by some such simple exercise as to write a part and narrate a part, or write the whole account of a walk they have taken, a lesson they have studied, or of some simple matter that they know. Before they are 10, children who have been in the habit of using books will write good, vigorous English with ease and freedom. That is, if they have not been hampered by instructions. It is well for them not to even learn rules for placing a full stops in capitals until they notice them in the books for themselves. Our business is to provide children with material in their lessons and leave the handling of such material to themselves. If we would believe it, composition is as natural as jumping and running to children who have been allowed due use of books. They should narrate in the first place, and they will compose later readily enough, but they should not be taught composition. And it's not that they never learn that. They do in high school have formal composition lessons, but if we hinder that and we bring those lessons in too early, we hinder that natural kind of progression she's talking
And
about.
that's almost heresy in the world of teaching language arts by these lessons that are broken down into concepts and this scope and sequence. It's almost like when you tell people this, no, I'm not going to try to teach them exactly how to write a paragraph in the 4th grade, because they're going to learn how to do that as they progress in the books that they read, because they've been reading great paragraphs. If you're not allowing your child to read great paragraphs, you've got to work the whole program in order for each part to fall into place and each building block to grow on top of each other.
Yes. And also that natural, she's talking in here about grammar, that we shouldn't be teaching them a bunch of rules before they're noticing these things for themselves and pointing them out. So let's jump into the subject of grammar here. I'm trying to find that.
Grammar just goes around and around and around. It's the same thing in a grammar book that's in the 9th grade as what's in a grammar book in the 5th grade. So why are we so worried about? And I have had people say to me, this grammar seems too simple. Like, why is this so simple? But we're not trying to, the goal is not for them to memorize. If I say, tell me what a preposition is. Okay. And then to say, okay, I can tell you exactly what it is. Because in work, when we're working and I'm writing something for work, I'm not thinking, oh, let me come up with a great adverb to go here. It comes from the understanding, right? These
Yes.
things that I've read. And so it's not that you have to be able to know the labels and know that the goal is, like I said before, is that what's the end product. And that grammar is so much of it is absorbed in these wonderful books.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think the grammar that we're doing now, of course, we use a gentle feast, but the grammar that we do now with just the little bites as we go
Mhm.
that builds, it's so powerful. But the real grammar comes from what we're reading.
Yes. And I'll link to this in the show notes too. It's a great article by Ruth Beechick it's called I Hate Grammar.
Oh, I love her.
I know, I love her. That again, she's pointing out that what's the end goal?
Yes.
Can they write well and do, that's the goal is can
Yes.
they write well? That's why we learn grammar, right? So if that's our end goal, what's the best way to get to that goal? Is it diagramming sentences and learning rules and doing 45 minutes of grammar lessons
Where
every day?
you're miserable and you hate it.
And they hate it, right? That's why you hate it.
You hate it because you're working so hard to learn something in a way that is not natural. It's just not natural for us to. And listen, okay, I was a little bit of a nerd in the eighth grade. I was a nerd all through school, but in eighth grade, we had diagramming sentences.
Girl, I love me some diagramming. I love it too. It's so fun.
I'm not knocking it. Listen, I love to diagram it. I'm like, ooh, here's a long one, and it's got all these adverbs, and this line goes here. I loved it. And by the time you get there, okay, great. But if we do that, it's like almost if you fed your kid a cupcake every single day, you have to eat this cupcake. After a couple of years, if you showed them a cupcake, it would be like, oh, please don't make me eat that. And I feel like that's what we do. We're handing them this stuff in second grade, third grade, and we're beating it over their heads for all these years. And so by the time we get to high school, where they really do need to be understanding it to write these intelligent compositions and express themselves in
Mhm.
good narrations, they're just done. They're done with this grammar. They don't want to see it anymore, think about it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was the point in the article and what Charlotte Mason was referring to. If you wait until they're older, you can give them a grammar book that teaches
Yes.
them rules and they will accept it with the knowledge that this is going to help me be a better writer. And they have something that they're applying it to. And it's not just these arbitrary sentences that they're diagramming, which, yes, for kids like us, that's super fun. But like you're saying with the cupcake thing, like that just because it's super fun doesn't mean we need to keep stuffing it down our throats. And that they'll be able to apply it to what they're actually writing, which is the goal, is to be able to write well. And like you're
And
saying,
they'll recognize it. They
yeah,
recognize,
it's
oh,
great
okay.
that that's an interjection, right? And that you
Yes.
know how to punctuate it. But why are you putting it in your sentences and just filling in these arbitrary grammar worksheets that have no meaning to them? And that's why I think grammar books repeat themselves constantly, is because they have to keep drilling it and drilling it and drilling it for kids to get it because it's so arbitrary. And if you wait till they're older, she started formal grammar lessons in Form 2, which is around fourth grade. And her book was called Simply Grammar. You can look it up. It's in the public domain. We can link to it if you want. Karen Andriola took it and put it into like a more simplified kind of book for parents by that same title, I believe. But it is very simple. It is. It's just these, like you're saying, these little bite-sized pieces that they get over time that add up to an understanding of proper usage and punctuation, but then tying that into what they're writing. And 5-10 minutes tops
Done.
every
Yes,
day,
done.
not pages and pages. Some grammar curriculums, it's like 45 minutes to an hour for a grammar lesson.
I don't even want to do that. I
No,
mean,
this is like torture.
yeah, and I think that's the short lessons. And we keep coming back to that. And I know we do, but I read and answer so many questions from so many moms who just really worry about those short lessons. There's no way that 10 minutes is enough. But if your child is paying attention just for those
Yeah.
10 minutes, it really is enough. It really is enough. And then and just be done. And then they don't walk away saying, oh, I hate grammar. I'm like, oh, that was 10 minutes.
Mhm.
And then you move on. And then the next day, when you or whatever day you're doing grammar, because we don't do grammar every single day. We do something that involves grammar, but we don't call it grammar. But the next time you pull out grammar, it's, oh God, we got to do grammar. It's okay, 10 minutes.
Mhm.
10 minutes. This takes 10 minutes and we're done. And then they have that taste in their mouth that is good when you mention the word grammar. Because I can tell you now, I really made some big mistakes with my older children when they were younger. And I can even say grammar. In fact, my oldest child, I had this grammar. Okay. And every day there was a front and the back of a page. It
Mhm.
was more than 10 minutes, right? I was not doing well. Okay. In my defense, I had a bunch of really small kids running around. So I did not check his grammar workbook
Mhm.
for, I don't know, it was too long. Right. And
Oh, girl, we've all been there.
it was probably in the third or fourth grade. I don't really remember now.
Yeah.
So one day we did morning time, and I said, "Son, lay your grammar book out, please, because I need to check it." You could see the blood, and it would go from the top. It was dropping down. His face is turning white, and I thought, "Oh my gosh!" So I got out his grammar book, and he had literally written on multiple pages, "This is dumb. I hate grammar. This is stupid." Page after
We
page.
punctuate them correctly.
I was so shocked. I don't even know. I was like, oh, what? And this was my indication that this grammar is probably not, this is probably not the best choice of grammar for my child
Yeah.
because this is not. So I'm telling you that story. Don't do what I did. Do not beat it in them where every day he's having to do this grammar that he literally is just stressing my kid out,
Yeah.
stressing him totally out.
And it's such an abstract concept, right? Why is that called a preposition? Who
No,
knows, right? We're putting these arbitrary names to things. And so I think waiting till they have that abstract reasoning makes a lot of sense. Like when
yeah,
they're around 10 or 11 and they're able to think abstractly, that's why you wait later for some of these math concepts as well. And grammar is
yeah.
like a language to itself. When they're younger, this is so meaningless to them. It's I want to choose an action word because it makes sense in the sentence and I want to be
Why
able to
does it
express
have
to
to be?
you what I'm doing. I don't need to know that it's called a verb or this is a helping verb with it or it's the past participle of the I didn't even know all that stuff.
Right. I have to look it up, and or if my daughter will ask me a question because she's in Form 3, so she does have a grammar book that she does a little bit in every week, and she'll say, "Mom, which is this?" I don't know. I don't remember. A lot of times, I can read the sentence and feel what should be there,
Right. Yes.
but I don't know the name for it, and that's fine with me. It doesn't. I'm good with that.
And
So
you don't necessarily, yeah, like you're saying, we are able to intuitively know, does that sound right?
yes,
Punctuation rules, I think, are a little different. Those come in when you're writing and you're writing well, and you can give a child a book and they can learn, okay, this is comma goes inside the quotes and those
exactly.
kind of things when they're older. But the usage comes from listening to really great books and knowing, oh, wait, that doesn't sound good. That makes no sense. Oh, that sentence, I just kept going and going. There's no, like, I'll be reading my daughter's written narrations and we correct one of those usually. It should be once a week, but it's not. Let's just be
Right.
honest. Every couple weeks, we'll be like,
Circle.
this
One circle.
I'll be reading it to her, and I'd be over dramatic, but I'll just keep going on and on because there's no punctuation, and I'm
Yes.
like, oh, like I'm gonna pass out. I can't breathe. There's no pauses, and anything you just wrote here was just on and on and on and on and on. And on.
Yes.
I just start laughing. Okay, I'll add some commas and some
Yes,
periods.
apparently I need to go back to my mom. And that's why I always tell my writing students, read your papers out loud
Yeah.
to someone or yourself before you turn them in, because most of the time you will catch that kind of stuff when you hear it by your ear. And I want to go back to, this is why they need to be reading where they can see the words.
Yes.
A lot of times, even when I read to my daughter, I will have her sit beside me so she can see what I'm reading and follow along, because it's important that she sees mom stopped there because there was a period. Mom paused there because she's not taking saying that in her mind, but those are the things she's picking up
Mhm.
as she sees. And that's why, as soon as they can, like Charlotte Mason says, let them read on their own, because you are allowing them to learn grammar
Yeah.
by allowing them to do that. It's just not in a workbook form.
Yes, and I think we don't always recognize that, especially like even like their recitation readings, pointing out, okay, why is there a period here? Okay, if there wasn't, and I had to keep reading this whole entire poem without pausing, I would pass out. That period's there for a reason. Here's what you do here when you're reading it out loud, pointing that out to them. You don't have to have a workbook page where they learn the 4 different types of sentences over and over again to know that there's supposed to be an end punctuation there. You can point that oh, when you're reading this one, it ends in a question. So did you notice like your voice naturally went up at the end? That's why it's a question. They're asking something. This is called a question mark. It can all be very natural without something that they're doing like a drill and kill every week for grammar. Anyway, do you have any closing thoughts on what we've been talking about today?
I think the only encouragement I would really give parents is to really just accept the whole concept and not just dip your toes in.
Yes.
Because I think if you just say, okay, we're just going to do copy work, we're also going to use all these textbooks for all these other things,
Right.
I think that leads to frustration
Yeah.
because I think you're not going to see the progression that really you will see when you use every component and
Mhm.
allow it to be, like we've said multiple times, a natural way of learning. But when you include the living books, include the children reading, of course, when they're able to, and not reading everything to them, when you are doing what's age appropriate and level appropriate for your child, all these different things we talked about, all of those things create a beautiful language arts education.
Yes.
But little bits here and there, I think you're going to maybe get frustrated because you're like, why are they not getting this? And it's because each thing really, we really are created to learn this way. Our brains are created to, with tweaks, of course, but this is the way we are created to learn. And when we put all this together, then it's really a powerful way for your children to own this language arts education for themselves.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Thank you for bringing that up because I did that at first. Like I heard about copywork and I was like, "Oh, this sounds fun." I bought a book like copywork for little girls, and it had all these like cute little passages in it.
Yes.
Like we're doing copywork, and then I'm like, "Why are my kids not loving this?"
Mhm.
Like it was just some arbitrary thing that I like piled onto. Okay, you're gonna do this workbook for this subject. Okay, here's the copywork workbook. And now you're moving to this other workbook. There was no integration with anything that we were doing. So they didn't
Exactly.
see the value of it. I wasn't doing dictation. I never even heard of that. So they weren't learning spelling from it. They're just copying and they're probably just doing the letter by letter thing as they copied the book,
Right.
copying whole word. There was no purpose to it. And yeah, they weren't getting the benefits out of it that I wanted, which was the spelling and the proper handwriting, the punctuation. They were frustrated because it was just
Yes.
some arbitrary thing. So I really do feel like you made such a good point, and it does all fit together. And when it does, it's so natural.
Yes.
And it's just like a breath of fresh air, I felt like when I figured it out and how to put it all
And
together.
not frustrating. You're not frustrated because it just all goes to, oh gosh, we didn't get our grammar workbook done today. One of the things that just helped me take a deep breath is, okay, but they read some really beautiful passages today.
Mhm.
And there's some great grammar points in that. I
Mm,
don't have to
yes.
put it on a worksheet. I don't have to, it all goes together.
Mm,
And that makes me less stressed and makes me more relaxed. And our kids so pick up on that. If we are really trusting what we're doing, what we're providing for them, this feast that we've said so many times, if we're trusting that, oh my goodness, this is fabulous, we're relaxed and they're able to really take from it what they need. And it makes school a
mm.
totally different experience.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's just flows. Everybody can be relaxed. It's actually like enjoyable. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah, we all have our moments, but I've just found it to be such a natural, relaxing way to learn some of these key components. Thanks for coming and chatting with me today.
I always love to talk about, especially books and Charlotte Mason. So
And if you're looking for a really easy way to teach some of these language arts components, in the show notes, I'll link to the language arts packets that I have for a dental feast. Definitely for Form 1, they're based on the different history cycles, but for Form 1 and 2, no matter what history you're using or what curriculum you're using for other things, you can use these language arts books that will fit very well. When they get to be Form 3 and up, it does tie more in with the full curriculum, but Form 1 and 2, you really can use them with whatever you're using. And it does have the copy work and some beginning grammar concepts and the dictation. Just if you need help with that consistency, there's a lot of people I know who don't, and they're able to do this on their own using the living books that they have and get the copywork passages from them and do the dictation every week for them and add in a very simple kind of grammar.
I'm not that girl.
If you're like Shay and you're like, help.
I am not that.
Language arts packets from a dental feast if you are interested in checking them out.
I need my language arts packets. Yes, I love them. Love them, love them, love them.
Yeah, it keeps me accountable. And like you said, it's so nice to be able to have everything all together so that we can go back and look at, okay, this is how you were writing at the beginning of the year. Look at how much you've progressed. And we wouldn't have that. And I always felt like I was like trying to track down notebooks and pieces of paper, and it's just too much. I need simple in my life. So,
Me too. Yes.
all right, girl. Thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care. Thanks.
here. I just wanted to say thank you for listening to today's episode. If you like this show, it would mean the world to me if you would leave a positive review in iTunes. This really does help people learn about the podcast. And each month I will pick a winner to receive a free gift. Don't forget to check out all the free resources we created for you at thefeastlife.me. Thank you.